You're watching Cover to Cover, our guide to the Sikh and Punjabi books that you need to read. This week we're introducing Fascinating Folktales of Punjab, the Undivided Punjab edition number 1. This is a book of stories that have been retold by Gurmeet Kaur. The version that we're looking at is hardbound, as you can see, and was published in 2017. This edition contains volumes 1 to 5 of these Folktales of Punjab. Those are available to purchase separately, but for the purposes of this review, we're looking at the collated edition. The author Gurmeet Kaur is an inspired and wonderful writer from North America, and in this work, what she has brought to life are some traditional folk tales from the Punjab from centuries ago and retold them for an audience anew. As you can see from the book cover itself, and as we'll delve in from the inside, this is not a one-person project, but there were numerous individuals who contributed to everything from the illustrations to the way that the stories were retold in 3 different scripts. On the face of it, this book is aimed at children, and you'd be right, that is the target audience. But I have found in the years that I've owned this book that it is not just for children. I've loaned it out to other parents of young children thinking that they were going to be reading it to their children, and have found that they had the same outcome that I did. Once they'd read it to their children, they were reading it themselves and rereading it again. Learning stories, well, folktales from the Punjab is not something that many of us have been blessed to grow up with. And so in this particular work, what Gurmeet Kaur has done is taken some wonderful stories that have helped to make people from the Punjab who we are, and has retold them for us in 3 different scripts, as I said. Let's take a look inside at how the stories are structured to explain how that works. Let's take a look at the contents page, because that's what you're going to be interested in. There are 5 chief stories in this particular work. We have the sparrow and the pipple, we have the sparrow and the crow, the lamb and the toll, the farmer and the dove, and finally the very hungry ant. Now, what makes this book really special, I think, is that in between each one of the folk tales being retold, we have some extra sections, some smaller chapters if you like, that talk about the undivided Punjab. So this was Punjab before the birth of the countries India and Pakistan, and it stretched quite a vast amount of territory that today traverses both of those 2 countries. And so what we have here is some elucidation, if you like, on how that land came to be, some of the cultural elements of it. We have the 5 rivers, cities of Punjab, tales from the land of Punjab, Punjabi dialects, and then finally closing the book off, we have about Gurmukhi and Shahmukhi. We then have the Shahmukhi alphabet for Gurmukhi readers. We then have the Gurmukhi alphabet for Shahmukhi readers. And finally we have vowels and vowel combinations in Punjabi. If I show you here just a page completely at random, we've got one of the particular folktale stories that appears in this volume. And what you can see in the top left, I'm just going to have to hold on to the pages, it's quite large. On the top left, you can see that we have Gurmukhi script. Underneath that, you have some English language retelling of that same story. As well, of course, you've got the illustrations in the backdrop. When you come over here, what you see is the Shahmukhi script. So it's the same 2 paragraphs, the same story being retold, except now it's for those people who read this particular script of the Punjabi language. And on this page, what you also find is 2 different words that have been mentioned in the story, referenced, so that on the exact same page you can understand and appreciate what those 2 terms were. All in all, this is an absolutely wonderful book, and I think that any person who wants to learn more about the Punjab, wants to be more in touch perhaps with their roots as being of Punjabi origin, needs to own this book. Yes, it is targeted and aimed at children, but for anybody other than a seasoned reader in Punjabi, this is a wonderful book for you to start getting more to grips with the language. For those of you watching our cover to cover who might be familiar with the Gurmukhi script, this is a great way to cross over and start teaching yourself a little bit of Shamukhi. Now, don't be under any misimpressions here. You will not be able to teach yourself an entire script just by using a book like this, but it is a great way to get a feel for how that language is written in a different script, and it also helps you to understand how different vocabulary exists, how different ideas are interpreted and spread across, how sentences are structured. All of it can be found from this beautiful book, as well as, of course, telling you a little bit more about the culture of the Punjab. Now, because of the kind of book this is, there are no other extras to talk about. However, that being said, I do need to give special mention to the wonderful illustration throughout that was completed by Susanna Dong. And when you look at the credits, you see that there are significant contributions from other people contributing to the layout, the format, how the words were interpreted into those different scripts, and how the entire book appears. It really is an absolutely wonderful piece of work. It is available online and in certain selected bookstores in person around the world, particularly across North America. And you might find that the price is what you consider to be a little bit high, but what you are purchasing is a hardbound edition, and it is definitely worth the investment. As I said, this edition that we're looking at contains 5 of these separate folktales. Those are available individually to purchase for those of you who don't want to spend as much money on one big giant book. But we want to know what you think, so please leave us a comment below, share your thoughts on fascinating folktales of Punjab retold by Gurmeet Kaur. Make sure you subscribe to the Naujwani YouTube channel so that you don't miss any future episodes of Cover to Cover, our guide to the Sikh and Punjabi books that you need to read.